Hey everybody, so I just wanted to show off my second place OTS championship list for the Warchest in Ireland. So I was playing Adventure Kashtira. I lost to Furniture Lab in the finals, but the deck performed really well. Beyond that, actually performed really well in general. So far I've been playing a lot of Kashtira and it's been going pretty well-ish, but every so often you'll have like serious bricking moments where have been getting really frustrating based on how people build the deck or how people build the Kashtira deck, which is often, you know, lances and imperms or tons of hand traps and things like that. And what I've noticed and what's been really frustrating for me is just passing turn with nothing on the board because you open all the cards that need something else along with them, like a cash monster or something else. So I tried a different approach. So I went with I wanted to go back to a more straightforward way of playing the deck, which is basically Adventure Cash. And the reason I went with that is because I think evenly, first of all, has kind of fallen out of favor quite a bit. So this doesn't lose as hard to evenly. But let's get into the profile and just talk about stuff. So I played 3 Pressure Planet, as you might imagine, and a Terraforming. Just really good cards. Obviously Searching is good. The Shangri effect is also really good. Even if it gets impermed, it still gets this effect, it still gets the effect if you go Shangri effect. If you declared it at all, you get to pop stuff. So it's quite a good way of removing floodgates, for example. Then you've got, I played 1 Ogre. I just like Ogre because he's big and also he's a different type, in case that ever matters. Or not type, different attribute. So it bumps everything up by 100 as well. The Searching the Trap kind of comes up a very small amount, but mostly it's actually just about the size because he's 2800. Scareclaw is obviously completely broken, very helpful for getting over things like Dragoon and so on. But the problem is, with Dragoon, for example, he still says big, I think, but even then, it's like you need a pretty decent number of types in order to get over a Dragoon, for example, or you need to have the Fenrir in attack mode, which oftentimes when you're using Theosis, Fenrir is still in defense mode, which is annoying. So then I played 2 Rise Heart. So I was playing 3 for a long time just because I like a good normal summon, and it actually would have came up a lot because one of the games I lost to when I lost to Labyrinth in the final round was because I lost to Barrier Statue beatdown, essentially, right? So I was completely locked out of the game with the Dark Barrier Statue in game 2. So having a normal summon that could just beat over it would be very good. So that would have been helpful, but obviously that's not very useful in terms of general play. You know, that's just a one-time situation that could probably crop up. So, but in general, I just like the fact that this can get you started if you open like Birth or even Theosis. You know, you just get into the game a lot easier. And I just like having normal summons. Then we've got just the 2 Unicorns, so you can only play 2. Best card, I opened it a lot. Very, very useful for mostly, just searching the spell. You know, searching yourself as a Birth for follow-up is oftentimes really good. The fact that this 25 is quite good as well. Then we've got our 3 Fenrir. Fenrir is also, Fenrir is Fenrir, so it does a really good job. I actually didn't use the Vanish face down effect that much. Oftentimes my board would either get broken or something else like that. And I have to decide whether it makes sense to keep the Fenrir on board or do something else. And I'll talk a bit about end boards in a sec afterwards as well, because the end board that I was kind of ending on oftentimes was quite interesting or quite weird, and it really depends on the matchup. And then just Big Bang. I didn't play Preparations this time. I've been trying out Preparations and Big Bang, and in the hands where you brick, and this deck does brick because it's actually very like Monarchs when that was out. It bricks very hard, and I opened at one stage, I think I opened Big Bang and Preparations in my hand with 0 Kashtira monsters multiple times the day before when they were doing the 25th anniversary celebration. So I just didn't want to open completely unplayable. Then we got 3 Births, pretty standard. This card is incredibly broken. It's insane against stuff like, well, like the day before I was playing against Runic for Hire, for example, I was able to banish all their Runic cards when they activated Fountain and that sort of stuff. Obviously, it gets branded, it's quite good. I was able to stop a branded in red, I think, from going off because there's no target. There's no Albaz left in grave, or nothing Despia or anything else, which is quite good. And then 3 Theosis. I mean, Theosis is Theosis as well. It's quite good. The restriction of locking you into Xyz is quite frustrating sometimes, just because I play Barone, and sometimes you have to keep it in mind or you'll forget about it. And yeah, that's basically all the cash monsters. I didn't play tier cash this time. I would have played it I did play it the day before. I find it quite useful. The theory behind it was just that you can, if you're already under a rise start, you can just mill your branded opponent for more cards. You can mill them for 3 essentially. Also it puts up damage, which is quite good. But generally speaking, what I would have actually preferred is some more normal summons. So even something like Psy Beast or something else like that might not be the worst idea in the world in this deck. Just to give you more access to starting your plays. Then we get into, so this is, the thing about this is, as soon as because I'd said to people, I knew a lot of people who were going to this, and as soon as I said that I was playing 43 cards, people were trying to figure out what the gimmick that I was going to do was. Like, why was I playing 43 cards? Was I just looking to lose, or what was going on? So first of all, yes, I'm playing 43 cards in this deck that is, as I mentioned, quite bricky. And the reason for that is obviously because I'm playing the full adventure engine, okay? And I did not break on this engine a single time. I actually didn't see it as often as I would have liked to. It's 9 cards, and that is 9 cards that you can side out if you're going second, for example. If you know you're going second against a deck that's probably going to side in or was it Eradicator or Anti-Spell, then this is some good siding out options. And actually, I forgot that that's a normal summon as well, so maybe that makes sense. Now that I know people are on Barrier Statue Dark, I should keep that in next time. But like, obviously against Labyrinth, you don't want to keep in these spells and get Eradicator to death. But it's obviously a very good going first option. You know, but the thing that with this deck is, if you're playing in the mirror, they always want to make you go first, so they can kind of break your board. This makes it way harder to break your board. And that's one thing that I was not used to, because I don't have much experience with the Kashtira mirror, despite playing this deck a lot, because very few people actually play Kashtira around where I am, besides myself, or usually just getting absolutely bricked out of the game, so I don't usually get much exposure to it. In the mirror, like, it's usually it's not often very back and forth, but the last few ones have been quite skillful, so it's been interesting. But this sort of makes it a bit more on my side in terms of, if I know they're going to make me go, if I know they're making me go first, I'm just like, well, I'm going to set up a negate, and I'm going to set up a bounce, and what are you going to do about it? Obviously, Griffin Rider's level 7. I don't fear Nib at all, so this isn't usually for Nib. It's usually for like Book of Eclipse or anything else that could come up. Obviously not Dark Ruler no more, but we'll talk about that in a while. It's a really, really good engine, I think, and I have nice versions of them. So I have 3 Americans and 3 ultis. So I just hadn't played it in a while, and I just really like I like my ulti enchantresses quite a bit, so I just wanted to play it. I didn't want to throw the event necessarily, but I did want to at least enjoy myself and feel like I was breaking less in terms of, usually you can do a lot more when you have this. Like, even if you draw too many of the pieces, if you draw like Faithful Adventure and like Water Enchantress, you can usually still do something. Whereas with the Kashtira hands that you get, it's oftentimes with like Theosis and Lance and Imperm and all these other cards, you can end up doing literally nothing and just praying that you don't get killed next turn. Whereas this, you can usually set up a 2/8 in defense, plus a 2k token, plus a way to protect it as well. Obviously, it's very susceptible to like Evenly or something like that, but like, it doesn't matter. 2k token, that's kind of hard to get rid of, is quite useful. And yeah, very few people are on Droll. But even then, so then my non-engine was 3 Shifter, 2 Lava Golem, 3 Ash, and 3 Book of Moon. So that's my non-engine for the most part. So Shifter, I actually drew it like it was my job, which is quite good. I played against 2 branded, and I drew Shifter I drew Shifter I think maybe twice against both of them. And what it does is it puts them extremely far behind in terms of keeping up card advantage. And one of my matches, I was up against my teammate Ross, and I shifted him in game 3, and we were kind of coming into time somewhat. And he made the full board. He made Dragoon, Masquerade, all that stuff. And I was sitting there. I looked at my hand. I had Lava Golem, and I was like, okay, I'm winning this game. Like, but at the same time, there was like, as long as I get a turn and I get to go into battle phase, I'm winning this game, because all I have to do is summon a monster and then attack, and you take 1,000 or whatever in standby. But like, you can completely disassemble the board. I was left with maybe like a minute or 2 or something, so I actually got a good chance to clear the full board. And Ash Blossom's obviously for that as well. It's quite useful. I think I Ash Blossomed a single branded fusion, but it was after they already did 20 other things. So it kind of felt a bit negligible at that stage, but at the same time, that's the way it goes. Book of Moon was actually, I would say, MVP by a mile. One of my matchups was against Marincess, and I went first against them in game 1, and they nibbed me because I forgot to summon my Griffin Rider before the 5th summon, so I couldn't negate the Nibiru. But it didn't matter. Like, I had the perfect time to make or to beat Marincess, because I knew it was playing Marincess because they were beside me in the previous round, and I ended up just sort of setting 2 Book of Moon because my hand was completely cracked. I set 2 Book of Moon. They go normal, whatever, Blue Angel, or I can't remember what the cards are called. And I just like unsummon, I'm just like Book of Moon, and then they go special another one, I'm like unsummon Book of Moon, and they're there with 2 things in their Nibiru, and my Nibiru token is huge, and I just get to play. I get into like Rice Heart, Birth, and all this other stuff. I had miles of plays to keep going, so that was like one of the games. And then game 3 was obviously, unfortunately, Shifter plus Book of Moons again for Marincess. Because that's like the great equalizer for that deck, obviously enough. Yeah, Shifter is a dirty broken card. But honestly, Book of Moon is incredibly powerful. And Lava Golem as well, just to get around the Dragoons of the world and the Marincesses with their big ass guys. Although I did Lava Golem Marincess in game 2, and they just built the board again. I had nothing else I could follow up with, so they just rebuilt the exact same board and then put bigger monsters on it. And then I was like, can all of these guys attack? And he was like, yes. And I went, okay, let's go game 3, because there's no point. I'm like, you're going to take 20 minutes, but you're probably going to get to game unless you decide to be very silly and just not attack. And like, good chance that I'm not going to draw a card that lets me play. And then finally, obviously, the 3 cards are Pot of Prosperity. These are not my 41st, 42nd, and 43rd card. That's not true at all. I would say probably the Lava Golem and maybe a Book of Moon would be considered the 43rd and whatever cards. Or you could maybe reduce the size of your Adventure Engine a small bit. But I like to max out on that. And there's part of the reason is my siding, like the way I side in general. What I mean by I don't mean siding pattern. I just mean when I'm siding against decks, if I'm going second, I tend to side a lot of cards just because I think it's a good approach in order to get to what you want, like for the most part. Sometimes you're siding suboptimal cards, but you're siding out cards that would hurt you if you saw them under certain conditions, which is more so what I'm aiming for when I do that. But yeah, so Shifter is really solid. Lava Golem is really good as well. But yeah, and then we'll get into extra deck now. So I'll talk about a few things with this extra deck. So first thing is I played 2 Zeus. I don't think people are still doing that anymore, or maybe they are. But I'm playing 2 Zeus. Not because the Rise Heart or Unicorn banishes one of them or whatever, but actually just because you just, after you clear the board with one Zeus, you just go attack and put another Zeus on top. That's it, really. So then you just get another Zeus back. And I did that quite a few times. After I either cleared the board with the Zeus, I just go, okay, next turn I get to do some stuff and attack and all that jazz. That's really good. So this card, I'm not sure, I don't think many people are playing this, but it's called Harmonizer Gradial. And the interesting thing about this is mostly that it gets multiple attributes, but it's also sort of that thing that returns, that quick play spell that returns stuff to the deck. I think that's what it sort of does, right? Oh no, sorry, it attaches it as a material. So it's quite useful. It's like it's almost like a GD Crow, but the main thing that it does is it cannot be destroyed by the activated effects of your opponent's monsters with the same attribute as this card. And so there are situations where you give it an attribute. So I think at one stage, I sucked up like an Albaz or something. And this is not obviously in the OTS, but I've sucked up like an Albaz or something else just to make it have the attribute of Dark, so that when something happens, no, that doesn't work. It doesn't work against Mirror Jade. What am I thinking about? It's just that's not what I did. I did something like that to protect myself with this card. And so it's, but it's just quite useful. Yeah, so it's immune to activated effects, and it's also 27. So it's quite big. It beats over Big Eye, for example, which is usually a kind of useful reason to play it. Not with the field spell, obviously, but just it's like one of the bigger ones, and it's quite a nice looking card, and it's a light as well, so it gives you extra attributes for if you have the field spell up, which is always quite useful. I got Draco Sack. It's just for outing. It's for outing skill drain, I guess. Basically, that's kind of the definition of it. The other thing it does is lets you just summon tokens and things like that. But like that's it really. It's just a backup plan again. I never summon this. I usually actually just banish this off Prosperity. Like I can show you my Prosperity banishes in a second. Then I played Flare Metal. This card is actually MVP, but like for the day or for the past 2 days, because what I started to realize, if I'm able to get to it, sometimes you'll end up just leaving like the Fenrir or the Unicorn on board. But actually, what I was doing, or what I noticed, was in like the mirrors, for example, or in different matchups, having this plus a Rise Heart on the board is incredibly oppressive, because they are burning the absolute crap out of themselves trying to get rid of this guy, or just activating effects. Like Branded in particular, like they have to do a lot of things unless they have the out specifically for this, and they're just burning themselves constantly for this. Same with actually in the mirror as well. So I ended on this plus this in the mirror, along with like a Book of Moon set or something. And it lets you, so they take 500 for activating Birth. They take 500 for activating the effect of Birth. Like, that's already 1,000, like straight away from just doing 2 things, you know? So if you're able to disrupt them even a small bit, this is often enough to get them down into really low levels of health, so that you can definitely kill them on the crackback. That's all you're trying to do, really, especially in the Kashmir. So you just try and kill them on the crackback when they inevitably break your board. And then obviously I'm playing one of Rise Heart, because you can only play one. I was playing Preparations, and usually what I was doing was either Tier Cash or Scareclaw. Is if this got outed, just banish it and then bring it back with Preparations. But I decided to not do that. And usually, to be honest, most of the time when I was playing this deck for like Nats, even when it was at when this card was at like 3, I wasn't making it. I'll be honest. The only times I made it and sat on it in terms of like a Dryden pop kind of thing was in games where that was the only thing I could do. But most of the time what I'll try and do is I'll make Shangri-Ira and like put this on top of something else and keep the Shangri-Ira, unless I know it's a mirror. In which case I put this on top of the Shangri-Ira to give it 3 materials straight away. But yeah, I mean, the Rise Hearts are incredibly oppressive. This plus Shifter is obviously insane. At the same time, if you Shifter and then go make a Rise Heart, it's like, okay, you outed the Rise Heart, but you're still screwed. So it's kind of rough. but I would say, yeah, Rise Heart's just quite good. It's handy to do Shangri-La effect in the standby with the field spell up, pop a card, summon a guy, and then after all that, you go... Anyways, so I used Shangri-La effect this turn, so I'm going to put this on top, and then you can do that way, like you can get a 3k beater out in like very few summons, so you basically are never under threat of Nibiru in like the third turn if you can keep your Shangri-La up. Then we got Dark Armed, which is obviously the best rank 7 that they've ever printed ever, and it's insane. It was quite good. The only thing that I did a few pops with this stuff, often just to sort of clear boards and leave them on maybe like 1 card top deck and pray. But oftentimes I actually messed up with this before, where I cleared their board and had nothing left to pop, and I wanted to do Theosis loop effects to get back stuff into my hand, and I just couldn't. But he's just quite good. You can obviously attack, pop 1 card, and then put a Zeus on top, and you still have you can still make a Zeus, which is quite useful. And yeah, it's a jump promo. It's quite nice. This one's a nice one. Then we just got 1 big eye. It's a gold rare big eye because my secret rare is quite damaged, and I don't want to get called up on it in tier 2 events, but it's obviously completely unnoticeable through 2 sleeves, but whatever. Yeah, big eye's good. 2600. I thank God he's not the strongest rank 7. I can just make Great Deal and beat over him. Thank fuck, because otherwise he's incredibly annoying to deal with. I didn't get in a situation where I big eyed someone's big eye, then big eyed their monster or anything else like that. But you can get into that scenario. It's quite useful if you can obviously get back your Lava Golem. I remember in previous profiles I talked about using the Kaiju, level 7 Kaijus, and then big eyeing them back and then making Dark Arm to blow the rest of their board up. I decided against that. I think the Lava Golem was more useful. I wanted to get rid of 2 monsters oftentimes because, like I mentioned, it's oftentimes Dragoon plus Masquerade in the big combo-y style boards of Branded, and so you kind of need at least 2 removals to make it worthwhile. But yeah, big guy's just good. Steal the monster. I stole someone's Starving Venom. That was quite useful. Then we got 2 Shangri-La. Shangri-La is great. He lets you summon from deck, and then the zone blocking is okay. But the only reason I do the zone blocking, honestly, is so that I can get the effect to make an Arise Heart. That's it. I don't care other than that. His battle protection and effect destruction protection is quite useful as well. Didn't come up at all, but it is always good. Then we just got Barone. So I play hand traps. So Barone is, you know, a level 7 plus a hand trap is a Barone. And then you can hopefully bring it back with Birth or something else like that. And that's all you're trying to do most of the time. In this case, that's exactly what we did. The negate is useful for when you're dealing with very simplistic boards. Also, actually at one stage I did this thing where I knew my opponent had an Albaz in hand, and rather than leaving the Barone up, I just went Barone in standby phase and then brought back Scareclaw Kashtira on the assumption that they didn't have anything to use to fuse that Scareclaw Kashtira with. And it actually, I think it almost basically won me the game, because it put them in a situation where they couldn't really use their Albaz as effectively as they wanted to. I can't remember if I won or not, but doesn't matter. I think I won the match, so that was okay. But it was just like, it's quite useful. The tagging out part is very, very good to get you back into the game. So I wasn't playing this for a very, very long time. I was actually playing the Expertly Noir, the rank 7 Noir, just to do a spin. But actually, what it should have been is the other one, Expertly Happiness, which is the Dark Ruler No More. That would have come up today, or not today, it would have come up, and it would have been very useful. Lingribo this is purely there in case someone decides to Ibly me, that's all. I didn't want to lose to something cheap, and unfortunately I did, which I lost to the stupid barrier statue, but yeah, this is just so I don't lose to something cheap, that's all. And then Entis is just for prosperity target or prosperity bait to pop stuff. Doesn't come up. I'd almost think of running like Ultimate Slayer for this. It's quite useful, just to get an extra pop or something, but it doesn't really come up. Goliath to protect as well, and then Donner just as your kind of Diamond Dire Wolf. Didn't make this a single time. I was kind of back and forth between when I decided on Lingribo, because I didn't want to lose to anything cheap. But if it came up that way, this card would have been either Expertly Happiness, Expertly Noir, or potentially what I was thinking about was the Blackluster Soldier Link monster, because you can use obviously the adventure stuff, right, to make the big guy, and he could help clear boards and clear games as well. And because it just requires 3 different names as opposed to, I think I can't use Scareclaw Triheart or Lightheart. Triheart, I think it's called. I couldn't use him, but I like him because he requires effect monsters, and obviously the token is not an effect monster, whereas the other one just requires different names. So that was the choice behind that. Barone I would always keep. Everything else is, I think, perfect. Obviously, you could make this a flex spot. This could be like Master of Blades, for example. I just didn't get one on time, even though, yeah, I just didn't get one on time. It would be Master of Blades. I just luckily did not go up against Runic today, but even then, that's the other effect of Flare Metal is quite useful for, because it can't be destroyed by flashing fire, for example, because it's got materials, which is also really very useful for this stuff. Yeah, that's the main deck. Then we've just got our little tokens. So I use, unfortunately, Dan's probably gonna kill me. I use the TKB business cards as my zone blockers. So front side is one Shangri and the back side is the other one. So that's my zone blockers, so you're aware. Then we've got my tokens, Field Center, my Nibiru token, Adventure token, because I could find, I'm playing Adventure, and then just tokens that I got from YCS, another Adventure token. Then we got side deck. Okay, so side deck, a few things to mention. Made massive changes. I was on like thrusts and stuff, but I didn't want to lose anti-spell. And what I've been noticing a bit is like, people don't use monster effects when they want them. Like when I want to kill, or like when I want to go second, the trust doesn't come up unless it's in like the, like it very rarely comes up. And I've been breaking on like triple tactics talent quite a bit recently, even though I only like usually play one. And what was happening was, I'd open it in my turn, and I'd open it with a bunch of other unplayable cards. My opponent would do nothing, or I'd do something and they would have nothing for me, and then I get impermed, and I'd be like, cool, this talent does nothing. And so I got sick of it. I got sick of that. So I decided to make sure every card was playable in some way, shape, or form. So I play Pancratops as just a going second, rank 7 guy, or level 7 guy. He's actually annoying. He's good. I just wish his name was his Kashtira Pancratops, because I could use Theosis with him, because I opened like him plus like 2 Theosis a few times, and it's a pain in the ass to deal with that. Nibiru, just for, there's a whole lot of Cyber stacks running around the place. This actually came up. I opened against one of my branded opponents. I opened Shifter. No, not Shifter, sorry. I opened Nibiru, Ash, and Bell against them. All right, and they had cross out for the Ash, which is fine. Let them keep playing. They didn't do Lebellion, so I didn't need the Bell. And then they did. Then they made like 6 monsters, and I go into Nibiru, and it was just like, well, womp, and then I just killed from there. So pretty crazy, but yeah. So 2 Nibiru, Pancratops, 3 Droll. This is just for Dragon Link in case it comes up. So this plus Shifter, it's just extra shifters. It's like what I was doing during Nat's format when Super Heavy Samurai was around. These are just extra monsters that you want to stop people searching and extending too far. And you just, obviously you can play through bricks when you're in that situation as well. So then the other bells, 2 Bell. I was playing 3 Bell on Saturday when I was doing the 25th anniversary celebration thing. It was quite useful. I did see it when I was playing against Labyrinth, so I wasn't regretful in the fact that I decided not to play 3 of them. But obviously if I didn't see it, I'd be like, oh, I should have played 3 because Labyrinth is obviously incredibly painful to deal with without Bell. That's actually better. It's better than any of the back row removal. Is to just stop their big welcomes and their welcomes from going off. Then I got 3 Solemn Judgments, which is my going first card. It was insane. The coolest thing about this is Kashtira makes you go first, and I judgmented them, and they couldn't continue from there. And because it works on inherent summons, it was like, okay, well, that thing is dead. So yeah, so Judgment was really good. I don't go into time with this deck that much, or even when I do go into time with it, it's like usually because I'm going second and not going first in the third game. So in that situation, I'm not looking to, like, I wouldn't be citing these in going first go in game 3 when I know I'm in time, because odds are if I know I'm losing game 2, which as I would assume, like if I'm losing game 2 and going first game 1, then I try to know I'm losing sooner than I can, as soon as I can, so that I just scoop, you know. That's what I was saying about the Marincess monsters, where they take forever to build up their board, but like if they're going to kill you, they're going to kill you, you know. That's all. And I was just like trying to calculate the damage. I was like, this looks like enough damage, so I'm just going to move on. And then just 3 Cosmic, and finally a Feather Duster. I actually would have preferred not playing Feather Duster because I'm not playing Thrust or anything else like that. And I would be fairly reticent in actually citing this in, because there's so many matchups where people are putting in Eradicator and putting in Anti-Spell against Kashtira, which are both very, very good sides. And so in those situations, I don't want to be putting in another spell. So oftentimes I'll be getting rid of a large majority of the Adventure Engine. So I'll usually get rid of 2 right. I'll usually get rid of 2 right of Armaseer and a Theosis and even a Terraforming and a few different things in order to fit in some of the hand traps. Or if it doesn't make sense, if I know I'm going second and the Adventure Engine is not a good way to break the board, then I'll just cite in a hell of a lot of the hand traps. Even if they don't make the most sense in the world, if I feel like they could have any level of synergy, then I'll just put them in. Just because I'd rather them than getting anti-spelled into Oblivion, you know. So overall, deck performed really well. I think I just like the Adventure Engine, to be honest. I feel like next deck I want to play is maybe something like Scareclaw Manadium with Adventure, or I don't even know, but like maybe I just want to play Dragon Link, 60 card Dragon Link or something. But deck performed really well, gives you something to do. I like a lot of the times when I'm playing the Adventure Engine and I'm playing it with like thought process in mind and not as a meme. Like for example, when I used to be playing, I was playing Branded, and then I would side into the Adventure Engine game 2, where if I lost, I would side in 6 cards or 7 cards, like a lower amount of the Adventure Engine, particularly to just play around Ash Blossom for Branded Fusion, which is obviously completely ridiculous to do, but anytime I'm taking it seriously and I'm using the Adventure Engine, it's kind of paid off quite a bit. So I could continue that way, and I would recommend people consider it. Obviously, if your locals or your regionals or your OTS championships or whatever the hell else there is still full of people playing evenly matched, they always have the second evenly matched. So this is probably not the best choice in that situation. But for any others, it's good. You just have to disrespect Nibiru. You actually don't keep on the negate unless you're pretty sure that it's going to be useful. But that's about it. Shoutouts. I don't know, like shoutouts to Lily because they beat me at the Tala one, and or they beat me 2-0 at the Tala one, giving my first proper exposure to the Kashmir. And then I beat them. I beat them the day after in the OTS, so that was good. What else? Yeah, I mean, shout out to Warchest and Rhiannon for running the event, and Cathal for being the judge and all that stuff. So yeah, it was cool. It was very fun. That's it. And just don't break with this deck and you'll be fine. And 43 cards is okay if you're playing the Adventure Engine. So that's all. Bye-bye. Subscribe and comment if you agree or disagree with anything I'm saying here. Grey Deal is quite cool. Bye.